Hope you all had a very wonderful day so far, and thank you for making time to join tonight's webinar. So today we'll be sharing Ultimate College Planning Guide for 11th graders. So my name is Stacy, and I work in the marketing team of Ingenious Prep. First, let's welcome our co-host Lee and Michelle to introduce themselves.
Howdy. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we're so glad to see many familiar faces here. And for those who are new, my name is Li Zhang, and I'm the co-founder and the CEO of To the Top Education. I'm so proud to be an Aggie. You can see the icon on the screen. I earned my master's degree from Texas A&M University in 2005. And then I worked for the university for 12 years. At To the Top Education, I lead my company's overall strategic planning. But my biggest passion is working directly with students in the grade 8 to 11 and their families on the high school planning. I truly enjoy guiding teenagers and watching them grow and celebrate their success along the way. If you and your friends are parents of a middle school or high school student, sometimes even elementary school, they come to me. I'd be happy to connect. You can always visit me at our office at KT Asian Town or meet with me over the Zoom. Also, don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel on the screen. So where we've posted nearly 100 webinar videos, some of them really from this year, and full of resources and guidance for families like yours. Thank you again for being here, and I look forward to tonight's session. Back to Stacy.
Yeah. Thank you, Lee. Next, we're gonna let Michelle to introduce herself.
Okay, thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Ingenious, for providing this special webinar for mostly to the top education's audience tonight. And thank you, everyone, for spending part of your Saturday night with us. And I am probably no stranger to you guys. Actually, we did this webinar, wow, almost 6 months ago with the CEO of Ingenious on March 16th. So my name is Michelle He. And I am the co-founder, the partner in crime with Ms. Li Zhang, and the chief academic officer of To the Top Education. And we've been in business for 11 and a half years, based in the greater Houston area, and our office is actually in Katy Asian Town. So I got my MBA from San Francisco State University, bachelor's degree in both State University of New York and from Peking University. So I guess I never went to college here in Texas, but I got to Texas as soon as I could. So I totally share Ms. Zhang's passion. And we play this tag team like a relay. So she will work with the teenagers from sometimes as young as the 7th grade. But once they're ready to apply for college, and that's where I step in. So I work with mostly high school seniors. In fact, right now I'm just in the middle of the college application season. Just this morning, I helped a student submit his application for Texas A&M of all the schools. So I look forward to working with some of you guys on the call with us tonight, and maybe some new friends. Thank you, Stacy.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Lee. So we're very thrilled to announce the partnership between Ingenious Prep and To the Top Education. We're gonna combine like 150 plus former admissions officers' expertise with our insights to empower students with personalized strategies. And also, just as Lee said, if you want to contact IGP and TTT Houston office, it's located in Katy Asian Town. We have the WeChat QR code here. You're gonna get a free 30-minute consultation. Okay, and here are the programs and benefits that Ingenious Prep and To the Top Education is gonna provide for all of you. So first, it's gonna be the expertise from 150 plus former admissions officers, and we're gonna help our students customize their college admissions roadmap. On top of that, we're going to have a lot of exclusive workshops and one-on-one support for our students. And we're going to also unmatch local and national expertise. So next, I'm going to welcome our host, Mary, to introduce herself with you.
Thank you, Stacy. Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Chobanian. I'm also actually conveniently located in Houston. It was, I think, coincidental. Nevertheless, it's wonderful to be, in Texas with you, and close enough. I'm near to Rice University. Nevertheless, a Houstonian. My background is in primarily in education, both secondary and higher education. And my entire career has been in education, serving both in the classroom and in admissions, working at a variety of different institutions in the United States, including some small liberal arts colleges, large private universities, large public universities, a law school, just a lot of experience in the admissions office. In addition to having conducted extensive secondary and higher education research, doing work with alumni and development, a lot of different areas, but certainly, most importantly, most significantly, a college counselor. So choosing to leave admissions after many years to focus on, preparing students for college and providing an opportunity for them to, identify their interests, develop and grow as people, young people, and, ensure that they have a high level of success getting into their dream schools. And so I've been with Ingenious for about 5 years, and now am an assistant director of candidacy building. And I work with, again, students as young as 8th grade all the way to, preparing for law school applications. So it's been really wonderful working with Ingenious so far, but I'm excited to share some of my insight with you tonight.
Thank you so much, Mary. So some quick housekeeping. If you have any comments, replies, or if you would like to interact with the true or false questions, please submit them in the chat box. We would love to engage with all of you. Please do not use the raise hand feature because we can't see it. For specific questions you would like our speaker to answer, feel free to drop them in the Q&A section, and our speaker will be answering those questions in the end. Also, if you have the most updated Zoom version, you can click the captions button to enable the feature. We will send out the recordings for this presentation tomorrow. So if you want to revisit any part of it, please do check your email. Here's our agenda for today. I'll briefly introduce Ingenious Prep, who we are and what we do. Then Mary will walk us through the admissions process, application strategies for 11th graders, and how to build school lists. We'll also share some great case studies, and you'll have time to ask any questions you have during the Q&A sections in the end. So for those who are not familiar with us, I would like to start with an introduction on who we are and what we do. We are a team of over 150 plus former admissions officers. Our former admissions officers come from top schools all over the country. Just like Mary, they have worked in the admissions office. They have reviewed college applications and made decisions on these applications. So they have admissions insights and are all very experienced and have successfully helped countless of our students apply for their top schools. So with their experience, they will create personalized college admission strategy for our students here at Ingenious Prep. We also have over 150 plus graduate coaches and scholars from top universities. They have gone through rigorous training, and during the application process, they will give students more hands-on guidance, such as editing their personal statements, reviewing their applications, giving feedbacks, and so on. So we do offer academic mentorship programs where students will work with mentors and TAs, receive training in research methods and citation. With this guidance, they can produce college-level research papers showing college they're ready for advanced academic work. So therefore, we give our students access to over 200 professors, researchers, or scholars. So their professional fields cover cancer biology, gender studies, computer science, environmental science, and etc. During academic mentorship, our students will conduct personalized research project with one of these industry professionals in a topic of their interests. So because of the insights and experiences of those counselors, we are able to build a cutting-edge curriculum, and all the expert members within the Ingenious Prep community receive systematic training based on the curriculum. So here are the results we got so far from 2025. We're having a really strong season as always. We've received 160 Ivy League and top 10 offers, 280 top 20 offers, 1,480 top 100 offers. If you are interested in our past results, you are welcome to visit Ingenious Prep's official website. And when you're comparing our students to third-party applicants, they're 7 times more likely to be admitted to a top 30 university, 8 times more likely to get into an Ivy League, and each additional year of working with us, their chances of being admitted to these top universities increases by 10%. So, and that's all about Ingenious. With that being said, I will hand over to Mary to give us more information on admissions process and application strategy for 11th graders.
Thanks so much, Stacy. Wonderful. So I'm excited to get started. First touching on how applications are processed and giving some insight into some application strategy. And by the way, as I move forward, please, again, as a reminder, please feel free to drop questions in the chat or the Q&A, as they will be addressed throughout the webinar, and then we will save time at the end for questions. So in terms of how applications are processed, this gives you kind of a general overview. Once you hit submit, your application doesn't disappear. It goes to the colleges to which you submitted your application, and the admissions office adds, your application to a pile of thousands of others. The applications are then often separated, according to just different admissions officers. Sometimes that's by region. So important for you to recognize, depending on the schools that you're looking at, you may have a regional counselor. That is someone who either reads specifically for your school, your high school, your region, as in like the greater Houston area, or just your state, so state of Texas. So important to look that up, because then you can identify who will be reviewing your application first. That admissions officer will then review all the applications from, in their pile from that region, and they will select kind of a handful of those applications they want to admit. They'll make kind of initial decisions on those applications. Then the applications continue to move forward into committee, and applications, even those that get denied, they are reviewed at least once, but usually more than once, multiple times, cover to cover, thoroughly. And this happens again, throughout various types of committees. So it could be a large committee of lots of all of the admissions officers. It could be smaller cohorts, etc. But there's a lot of reviewing that go on. And then, debating and conversation around, crafting that final community of students for the incoming class. So how do admissions officers compare applicants within and across different high schools? Really important to keep in mind that you are evaluated within the context of your region, within the context more specifically of your school. So they'll look at, admissions officer will look at your own high school and understand, for example, the strength of your high school. That is, looking at relationships between admissions officers and the college counselors at that school, the school profile, recognizing what courses are available to you, recognizing, kind of where students go to graduate, how many graduate and go on to college, where do they end up going, etc. what sorts of resources are available. This is, oftentimes is related to kind of the debate of private versus public schools. You're, again, not compared to private schools if you go to a public school. The other thing is, of course, more information contextually about you. So your transcript, your grade point average, your extracurriculars, your leadership and impact, your personal background, your class rank. I know that matters a lot here in Texas. But really important to recognize that you were reviewed within the context of your school, and then, throughout committee review, reviewed, amongst, other students from your region. So, key questions that admissions officers do consider when considering or evaluating your application within the context of your school is: how competitive is this school? How many resources does it have? What kinds of resources does it offer? How do students and families take advantage of these resources? How is the student performed within that context? And also, of course, we'll talk more about this, but how admissions officers might remember you and how they might talk about you when presenting you or discussing your case within committee. So the key takeaway here is you're competing against the students at your own high school, and then, of course, within your own region. That is usually within Texas. If it's an out-of-state school, if it's an in-state school, you're reviewed, very much within your high school and then within, kind of the greater Houston area. If you don't maximize your performance and how you take advantage of resources at your school, it'll be very difficult for admissions officers to select your application as one to advocate for during committee. And as a result, you might find yourself, kind of falling through the cracks and not being admitted. So 2 things to keep in mind, of course, with admission policy changes. So UT Austin, Texas A&M. So UT Austin, their automatic admission threshold used to be 6%. The top 6% would be automatically admitted. Now it's top 5%. They replaced the admissions appeal process with their wait list. And on October 15th, they've added the early action deadline. And as a reminder, that standardized test scores are required for admission at UT Austin. For Texas A&M, there's no more engineering early action deadline in October. And they also have an annual enrollment cap. So the main campus will now admit a maximum of 15,000 new undergraduates each year. And, this incorporates both first-year students and transfer students. What's important to keep in mind about this is that, of course, admission to these schools has become more competitive. Thus, it is even more crucial to not only earn those high grades, but also develop a more distinctive profile for admission. Of course, we're going to touch on some of those details throughout tonight's webinar. So ways to prepare more specifically, prioritize rigorous coursework. So that is, depending on what your school offers within its curriculum, it might be advanced placement or international baccalaureate or dual credit. That is taking, college level courses at a community college or a local college. And then, just generally trying to take the most advanced math, science, kind of STEM courses. Even if you're non-STEM, being able to kind of demonstrate your expertise across these areas is really important. Elevate your extracurricular involvement, showing that you are, a leader within the classroom, of course, as an academic leader within the school, within your local community, and however else you might be engaging with the larger community beyond kind of your local area. As well as, of course, kind of connecting to impact, depth, how long you've been committed to these types of activities, how you engage, how meaningful is your involvement. It's not just a kind of one-off thing, as an example. It's also important for you to stay up to date with changes in admissions, specifically if you're looking at UT Austin and Texas A&M. So, making sure to attend information sessions and college fairs. Many of these types of opportunities have become virtual. So if you're unable to kind of make an in-person visit to these campuses, keep in mind that you can look up opportunities for virtual information sessions and campus tours. Start building relationships with admissions representatives. Again, kind of taking a look at if you have a regional counselor, building a relationship with them. It's not that they might remember you and reviewing your application, but mostly it's just so that you can kind of connect with them. They can hopefully, especially if they've received your application or they know that you're really, really interested, they'll try to remember you. They will, kind of likely, kind of your name will pop up when they're reviewing your application, but building that personal relationship does say a lot about your interest and kind of your ability to kind of connect with that admissions officer in hopes that, again, that they will remember you. They also might have very useful insight that's very specific to kind of your school, your region, etc. So again, really, really good resource to have. As I mentioned earlier, because competition at these schools has only increased as a result of their policy changes, make sure to balance your rank and your GPA with that pressure, with activities that also differentiate you. So finding, again, creative ways to move beyond just your class rank and your academic achievement, but looking for ways to kind of use extracurriculars, service, leadership, impact as ways to, kind of build a more distinctive profile. And as a careful reminder, of course, making sure to take, the SAT or ACT during your junior year. I usually tell students the earliest you might consider taking the SAT for the very first time would be spring of grade 10. But generally, it's a grade 11 exam. So, you want to try to take it in grade 11. But I would say, of course, try not to take it more than 3 times, just because it'll end up showing up on your application. And if you keep taking it more than 3 times, you'll be spending more time on a test rather than spending more time building a distinctive profile with your extracurriculars, etc. So just being mindful of how you're engaging with the standardized testing as well is important. So one thing we talk about in Ingenious, that I find to be incredibly useful, both as a counselor within a counseling team during the application process, but also for students and families, is the application persona. So why it's important, how to form a unique and compelling persona. Your application persona, in short, is a short phrase that connects your whole application. It ensures a high level of cohesion, keeping everything, all those different parts of the application kind of closely connected, because I know the application feels like a bunch of different pieces that don't really relate to one another, but the application persona could really nicely bring that cohesion. It also ensures a high level of comprehension. So, as I mentioned earlier, applications are reviewed at least once, but often, multiple times, cover to cover. It's almost like thinking about it as like a story. I say cover to cover. It's like, this might be, the most important time for this admissions officer, especially the first one, to read your application, really get to know you. So that, cohesion is really important, but also is kind of fully understanding your whole story. And that application persona really nicely weaves a common thread throughout your application, which is really helpful. I think a lot of students tend to think like, oh, I have to build distinction by having this like really crazy personal statement or this like crazy thing that shows up somewhere on my application as a way to stand out. But actually, we're really looking for, kind of not to say predictability, but like a high level of comprehension. We really just want to get to know you, know your story, know who you are, how you think, how you perceive things, etc. So again, that, kind of common thread, that application persona provides that high level of cohesion. It also adds a high level of distinction. Your application persona is really meant to be only yours and no one else's. So as an example, multilingual public health campaigner bringing science and culture together. So again, the aim here is that no one else has that application persona. It's really meant to encapsulate you. It's the main takeaway, the big thing that the admissions officer remembers about you and is unique again to you. The application persona, as I share with students, is kind of like your brand. Oftentimes they're familiar with Apple, Nike, Lululemon, so it's kind of thinking of this through like that business lens. It's your brand, who you are, no one else. One thing that one of our colleagues has said that, that the most important thing that admissions officers look for is cohesion within the rest of the application. And I shared that previously. So admissions officers should think as they're reading your application that this, it's like, of course, this is the essay that, so-and-so, the student is going to write. Of course, I've been wanting to, they mentioned this in the activities list. I've been wanting to hear more about this really cool activity. I'm so glad that they chose to write an essay on this activity. So again, not predictable as in boring, but predictable as in, oh, wonderful. I get to like more deeply understand this applicant. And again, the application persona is meant to help with that strategy. So key takeaway here in terms of the application persona, if the admissions committee is going to remember your application, then they will need to be able to summarize what distinguishes you against other applicants in just a few words. So we do this at Ingenious. We do this with 1 to 2 phrases. And again, it's distinctive to you. So it's in hopes that that's what's going to help the admissions officer remember who you are. So kind of digging into this a little in greater detail. So what we see here is by looking at Matt's application, we see he is looks like a mistake there, but here are some examples. So again, it's a little, I remember learning about the application persona, and it's a little hard to follow it initially at first. But again, this is one great thing about working with Ingenious is that we draft it with you, we share it with you, and we, you as a student, and we provide you with the insight as to, is this accurate? Does this sound genuine and authentic? So here are some examples, again, to kind of further your understanding of this strategy. For example, multilingual public health campaigner bringing science and culture together, as I mentioned earlier, a talented fencer and recognized coder who uses computer science to assist people with disabilities. Relentless intellectual committed to creating sustainable cities across the United States through engineering, architecture, and environmentalism. So again, the application persona ties together aspirations, passions, your personal goals, your personal values, again, meant to encapsulate that in 1 to 2 phrases. It can either be, and this is important to recognize, it can either be highly specific. So some of those examples were very, very particular, or it might be interdisciplinary. For example, if you have 2 or more interests, it's a great way to kind of bring these interests together in a really cohesive and creative way. So for example, a highly specific application persona would be botanist committed to rebuilding endangered flora in Mongolia. Interdisciplinary one would be more of a trendy engineer aiming to apply chemical principles for more environmentally friendly fashion. So bringing together chemical engineering with environmentally friendly or sustainable fashion. So here's an example from the common application, just a little snapshot, looking at the student's honors list and part of their activities list, again, from the common application. Future plans include, kind of this desire to pursue ed tech entrepreneurism through business. The student was ultimately admitted to CMU, Carnegie Mellon, and to Cornell. And their application persona was ed tech entrepreneur hoping to revolutionize the field of special education through AI and technology. It's kind of looking at ed tech entrepreneurism combined with education technology, as mentioned. Here's another example, one that is, more connected to the humanities. So the students' future plans were kind of a writer or journalist at the highest level, aiming for a doctorate. You can see the activities list. Some of the personal information is blocked out, but you can see a snapshot from the activities list and the honors and awards list. And this student's application persona was an accomplished poet with academic passion to examine identity through language and economics. Really interesting kind of dynamic there for sure. And this student was later admitted to Harvard, Yale, and Princeton as example. So helping you at least begin to think about your application persona. One key thing that we do at Ingenious is working with new students, we create what's called a master resume. This is everything that you've done in high school, including honors, awards, extracurriculars, summer programs, even hobbies, like what you do with your free time. Like I have some students who just casually play guitar or like do a little bit of art on the side. This is important. It's part of who you are, part of, how you spend your time. So and part of like what you enjoy doing. So step one is then grouping these activities together that have similar traits, labeling the categories that you identify, and then how do these activities connect? How does the activities list bring these different interests together? And then trying to kind of craft a short phrase that captures what is unique about the student according to their activities. So, and again, this is like a first thing that we do at Ingenious is working on the master resume, but also the personal statement is something that is drafted by the counselor and shared with the student. So you don't have to be masterful in creating your own application persona. It's just a practice if you want to do it on your own. But it is something that we provide and share with our families as we work with them each and every year before, throughout candidacy building, before they finally reach, the spring of grade 11 and we move into application counseling. So some planning to think about. Selecting activities and classes have a huge influence on the shape of your persona, how it comes together. So you actually can control this. It's not accidental. It's not by luck. So, what sorts of, some things to consider, what sorts of issues do you care about? This could be social or otherwise. What experiences and skills have helped you to achieve, achieve what it is that, achieve your goals. How have your own values, that is your character and principles, how have they been demonstrated through your actions, how you get involved again in your activities, in your classrooms, in your community, and what kind of distinctive or unique perspectives do you bring to your community, again, within the classroom or outside the classroom, and how do you explore them? So that would be kind of relating to your cultural background, but the way that you perceive things in the world, what matters to you. There are many deeper attributes that admissions officers can take from evaluating your application persona or how it's been incorporated into your application. That is your character and attitude. So they think about, kind of your personal traits, your personal values. What do you stand up for? What do you care about? Your skills and experience. What do you bring to the classroom? What do you bring to the campus? Maybe it's because you've done a lot of leadership or you support a charity. There's a certain, kind of high level of skill or experience necessary or that comes with that type of experience. And, also, as I mentioned, kind of your aspirations are shown up in your application persona. So what do you aspire to do? What do you aspire to be? What are some of your goals? It could be to become a doctor, to become a lawyer, to invent something, to change something in society. Again, this is encapsulated in your application persona, which is quite cool. In thinking about the application persona, as you may draft your own, some things that you can think about as you maybe create your own is this application persona, is this persona unusual or surprising? Is it distinctively different? Does this persona, is it genuine? Is it important to the student's personality? Like, is it authentic? Is it memorable? Is it distinctive enough? That's usually one of the challenges, is that it might seem too general. And is this the type of, persona, type of person who will meaningfully contribute to a university's community, both as an undergraduate and as a postgraduate, as an alum? So we talked a lot about the application persona, and we're alluding a lot to extracurricular activities, so we can jump into that. So why do extracurricular activities matter? Colleges want to see students who are actively involved, committing to their community, demonstrating leadership in some capacity, demonstrating impact, or trying to make an impact, or make a meaningful difference in some capacity. Also, in addition, they want to see students who develop or grow over time, and they aim to pursue things that they really truly enjoy. That is particularly, of course, their academic interests, but other sorts of interests as well. They want to know who you are, right? They want to know what kind of makes you tick, how you keep busy. And your participation in high school is, of course, a good indicator of how you might participate in college. So they're looking for not only a stellar student in the classroom, but someone who's going to make a splash on their campus. So this is a place where a lot of high schoolers tend to, think that only, in-school clubs, for example, are like the most important, or like a certain sport is the most important, or a certain instrument is the most important. Your extracurriculars, what counts is quite literally everything, quite actually everything. So school clubs, competitive academic, competitive teams, hobbies, things that you like to do just for fun, student government or other leadership opportunities, service in your local community or larger community, sports, as I mentioned earlier, the arts. This includes visual arts, performing arts, music, etc. Media, that is, if you do anything through, newspapers, radio, podcasts, etc. Cultural, so like if you are really invested in your cultural background or understanding other people's cultural backgrounds, really important for them to recognize. There's so much more. So taking a little break here, true or false, admissions officers care more about your involvement in an activity than the category of the activity itself. So they care more about your involvement, you as a student, your involvement in an activity more than just what the activity is. Seeing true. All right. So they care more about kind of how you get involved, what matters to you, rather than like what type of activity it really is. Because you don't have to be. They're not looking to fill their whole class with like top debaters, for example. They want a variety of interests and passions and kind of motivations. So they care more about how you get involved in your interests rather than the specific type of activity. An example of how extracurriculars are evaluated. Harvard, for example, rates students' extracurriculars on the following 1 to 6 point scale. It might be an unusual strength in one or more areas, like a possible national level achievement or professional experience, strong secondary school contribution in one or more areas, such as class president or a local or regional recognition, as well as solid participation without special distinction. So your participation level matters. The greater that you participate, or the longer that you're committed, or the more profound or serious you are about your commitment to a certain activity, really matters. The higher, extracurricular ranking you receive. The higher ranking you receive, the higher chances of acceptance. So, of course, we have students sometimes who think like, oh, if I just do this here, this year, this year, this year, and it's all superficial, not the best approach. So what should your timeline look for 11th grade? You can look at like 11th grade leadership and impact portion of this pyramid. So working toward becoming a leader and making an impact with your existing extracurricular activities. Looking at 12th grade, this is where you're moving beyond just hitting leadership levels and growing and extending your impact, but really working toward becoming an expert, an accomplished expert within your activity. There's a lot on this page. But this is a general kind of timeline, something, again, we kind of provide with our students. Every student we work with kind of has an individualized or personalized approach to this work, but giving you kind of a general sense of goals throughout grade 11. Again, a reminder that this is being recorded, so if you want to look at the recording and pause and take a close look at this at a later date, you're more than welcome. Some school list essentials. So what you should know before starting your search. So we'll move into that category, that part of our presentation. First question here. How many colleges do you think you should apply to? Is it A, 1 school, B, 3 to 5, C, 8 to 12, or D, 15 to 25? Seeing C, C, C. C, you're right. 8 to 12. In today's competitive admissions landscape, students should aim to apply to between 8 to 12 colleges. And this list of schools should be balanced. That doesn't mean 12 high reach schools. It means a school list made up of, reach schools, fit schools or target schools, and then some safety schools. We'll talk more about what that means. Reach should be about 30 to 40% of your overall list. These are test scores and GPA fall below your test scores as a student, and GPA fall below the student's the school's 50th percentile, and the acceptance rate is usually below 20%. So that is that your credentials are at or below the 50th percentile of students admitted. This doesn't include high reach schools, or sometimes what we refer to as reach for the moon schools, which are like the Ivy Plus schools. And these are schools that are just a reach for every student, no matter your candidacy. You could have straight A's, best test scores, incredible extracurricular profile. It's just the acceptance rate is so low, something like 3 to 7%. It's going to be, a high reach option for every single student, no matter their candidacy. Fit or a target option would be about 30 to 40% of the overall list as well. So these would be test scores. Students' test scores and GPA will be well within the school's middle 50th percentile. So kind of, again, think of fit. Your credentials are the perfect placed perfectly within the level of students who are generally admitted to this institution. An acceptance rate is usually around 30%. Safety schools should be about 20 to 30% of the overall list. I think a lot of students overlook the safety schools, or they just apply to like one. So this is, really important. Even though it makes a small portion of the list, really, really important to have those safety schools and for you to like those safety schools. And so these safety schools will be your test scores and GPA fall above the school's middle 50th percentile. So your credentials are, more outstanding than the general student that they will admit. And the acceptance rate is usually above 50%. So again, sometimes they're referred to as likely schools, as in you're likely to be admitted. How do you determine reach, fit, or safety? Middle 50th percentile, that is the schools report the GPAs and test scores for the middle 50 percentile range of admitted students. That's something you can look up at each institution, because actually this is public information. Knowing your demographic. So for example, some demographics, depending on where you're located, they have a higher percentage of students that are coming from that region versus another region. Overall acceptance rate. So as I mentioned earlier, schools with acceptance rates below 20% are not safety schools for anyone. So a little bit of an exercise. Fordham University is currently about around 61 in the national rankings, but Fordham's middle 50% ACT range is 27 to 31. So if the acceptance rate its acceptance rate is about 45%. So if you scored a 28, Fordham is more of a target reach school, right? More of a reach school. If you scored a 31, it's more of a target safety school. And then if you scored a 33, it's definitely a safety school for you. Based on, again, it's middle 50 percentile for ACT. We don't have all the data here for this example, but just for the sake of an exercise. Northeastern, its middle 50th percentile SAT range is 1330 to 1510, and acceptance rate is around 30%. If you scored a 1550, Northeastern is a safety school. If you scored a 1500, Northeastern is more of a target option for you. And if you scored a 1400, Northeastern is a reach school for you. More of a, reach target school. Okay, key takeaways, just to kind of pluck away that important information. You should apply to somewhere between 8 to 12 schools, in-state, out-of-state. Your school should be balanced using realistic and accurate definitions of reach, fit, and safety. And the top schools is those with very low acceptance rates, usually 20% or below, are reaches for everyone, no matter your credentials. So what should you look for when you're deciding on where to apply? That is, some criteria include rankings and reputation. A lot of families tend to look there first. It's okay if you look beyond that. I would recommend it. Academics, location, school size, extracurricular activities, that is what you can do outside of the classroom, and then any sort of social factors, because most of these institutions, depending on the ones that you're most interested in, especially if it's a residential university, social community is going to have a huge impact on your experience as an undergraduate. So looking more specifically at some student cases. So student B is from the 2024-2025 admission cycle, and they attended a public high school in Texas. By the way, the names have been changed just to protect the identity of our students. Their counselor assignment, their former admissions officer and graduate coach, they came from Columbia University, and their progress manager is from Coventry. By the way, most application counseling teams have these three different types of counselors: a former admissions officer, a graduate coach, and a progress manager. So this is kind of the student's starting profile when we started working with them early on. So you can see their academics and scores, extracurricular activities, their interests in areas of study. So pretty strong student, involved in, service work, music, interested in business and finance and economics. Some challenges: they lacked a strong focus on business-related extracurriculars. Standardized testing needed improvement for the target major, just because business, finance, econ, they're very competitive. So they needed to kind of strengthen their academic profile. And there's no clear kind of cohesive narrative kind of connecting these different interests, because we see musician, someone who's interested in service, but wants to pursue business. So what are some things that Ingenious Prep did during candidacy building? One was through extracurricular enhancement. So we evaluated student B's activities to identify which to maintain, which ones to kind of reframe or to strengthen. It also means in some cases to trim the extracurriculars, because if you're getting involved in everything, right, we want to be really cognizant of where you're dedicating your time. You're only human, so doing everything is not very useful. We begin to kind of, focus in on kind of activities that reflect your particular interest and your goals. So maintaining high impact activities, reframing under leveraged commitments, for example, like student clubs or, in this case, the cello coaching, and then deepening engagement. So this is a student who was really involved in their community. So, kind of creating greater depth in their community service work through music and fundraising. They developed, in this case for the student or with this student, they developed a signature project that is something along the lines of like a passion project. It's distinctive to this one student. So Ingenious brainstormed an idea to elevate student B's long-term music involvement into a high-impact, leadership-driven project where they organized a charity musical festival that integrated artistic passion with business planning and social responsibility. So this initiative reflected strong organizational ability, financial insight, and community engagement, which of course aligns really nicely to this, interest in pursuing business and finance. They achieved, thankfully, they successfully achieved tangible impact through this process. As an organizer, the student coordinated 50 plus student musicians, 10 performance groups, a fundraising concert. For one fundraising concert, they partnered with North Texas Food Bank to raise over $11K for food insecurity relief. A lot of different really incredible experiences and skills gained from this particular student's signature project. This student also got involved in an academic mentorship. So to demonstrate the students' real passion for business, we paired them with Dr. Rodolfo Oviedo. He's a PhD economist from WashU St. Louis. And, this student was able to research the US-China trade war, impact on policy, markets, and trade, and then drafted a research paper that they were able to utilize and share within their application. This type of research experience demonstrates a high level investment or interest in academic research, which is, something that colleges look for, a high level of expertise in a particular area of interest. As well as kind of a commitment to, wanting to learn more about, a particular subject or topic. We helped this student B, craft a cohesive application persona. So what was drafted was a gifted pianist, an aspiring business leader who bridges creativity and analytical thinking, drive impact through entrepreneurship, financial insight, and community engagement. Throughout the application counseling process, we helped student B build a balanced college list by targeting top business programs such as UT Austin McCombs, NYU Stern, USC Marshall, and Boston College's leadership program, IU Kelly, Fordham, Babson. They all have, great options, great business schools, but they were, great, more of like the kind of match and safety options for this one student. And then being careful about selecting, a academic major for each of these different schools. It could look a little bit different. So for some schools, it was economics. For others, it could be business analytics with a minor in finance. The activities list, there was a lot of, kind of being creative and demonstrating the application persona in the activities list through identifying leadership experience, quantifying impact, demonstrating independent and long-term commitments to the student's particular interest in finance and business, as well as, again, as I mentioned earlier, their kind of research experience and highlighting that kind of in-depth research experience that they had. Personal statement, some information on how the student's personal statement kind of came together. Again, you're welcome to kind of look more closely at this slide by using the recording, but this kind of just demonstrates how the counseling team came together to, weave together a really beautiful narrative in the student's personal statement. Their academic profile, you can see how it's developed and changed. SAT went up to 1540, more 5s on their APs. And the student got into UT Austin and Purdue and Texas A&M. And it looks like they went to, this was not my personal statement, but it looks like they went to UT Austin's Macomb School of Business. This is another student who joined Ingenious later. So, the earlier student, had more time working with us during candidacy building. The student joined us exclusively in 11th grade. So giving us about, a little less than a year before application counseling formally begins. The students' counselors had experience and background from Johns Hopkins University, Boston University, and University of British Columbia. I'm going to highlight the challenges in this case. I'm just trying to be mindful of time. So this was a talented high achiever, but they needed to position the profile uniquely. So again, we've talked a lot about kind of having strong grades, having, the student has a 4.5 GPA, and, their RSAT is above a 1580. So, 12 5s on APs, like really, really strong student academically, but really struggling to kind of stand out as a distinctive applicant. So making sure that, kind of as an extensive, a student who is extensively interested in STEAM, that is like kind of looking at this interdisciplinary approach between biology, writing, and poetry, there was focus on the students' extracurriculars and developing a distinctive application persona. So the student shines in both STEM and humanities, which is great, but making sure that the student could kind of bring these interests together was really, really important. So again, kind of an application narrative that was meant to emphasize the student's unique personality traits while showcasing their interdisciplinary passion for biology and poetry. So the resulting application persona that came from this initial work was aspiring neuroscientists using translational medicine to provide opportunities through writing to give people a voice through their healing journey. Very specific. In terms of their activities list, you can see some snapshots of what their counselors, how they helped the student in crafting their activities list. So being really cognizant of making sure that the order of the 10 different activities that go on the common application was really thoughtfully and strategically considered, quantifying the impact, highlighting leadership experience, etc. All of these kind of seemingly small or minor strategies, building an overall very, very strong activities list that again reflects the student's application persona. You can see that here again, guiding her through writing her activities list with using dynamic verbs, developing more content or better content, and as mentioned, demonstrating skills or expertise, the students' values, and their overall impact. This just, again, some helpful tips for building a strong activities list. This is how the counseling team worked through the student's personal statement, their brainstorming. Again, recommend, going through the recording and taking time to dig into what's shared here and highlighted on the slides. This is, again, a lot of the kind of personalized work that we do. This student's essay ended up being, kind of using a childhood anecdote to illustrate their vision and goals, focusing on this intersection of science and poetry. So again, kind of strongly weaving together this application persona and providing context and meaning behind it. Selecting the major. This was also, of course, very strategic. So the primary major is neuroscience. This perfectly kind of aligns with the student's strengths and interests. Neuroscience is kind of a really nice marriage of both biology and psychology. But alternative majors that could look different at different institutions, again, could be computational biology, regular biology, and a recommended minor in English. Identifying a variety of schools for the student's balanced school list. So identifying fit schools. The student was really interested in top tier schools like Harvard, Yale, and Harvard, Stanford, and Yale, as well as some, very, very intensive schools that are STEM focused, like Carnegie Mellon, Northwestern, and Johns Hopkins. The student also took a look at some of the small liberal arts colleges like Williams, Amherst, and Pomona. So kind of being able to recognize the value of these smaller schools, these small liberal arts colleges that are very, very interdisciplinary in their approach to teaching and learning, as well as the size of the undergraduate population. So a lot of these larger universities like UC Berkeley, UCLA, USC, they provide a lot of opportunities for students in research, networking, and then, the student has a particular interest in translational medicine. So having that kind of relational environment to a possible medical school. Thinking carefully about early decision versus early action strategies. Just as an example, the student's counseling team recommended Harvard as a more suitable option for her early application rather than Stanford or MIT. Again, expertise, insight that we share. So the student's 12th grade profile. So when they were starting, they were they had already started their, application counseling, but you can kind of see how the student has developed or grown over during their time. They're 9 to 10 months with Ingenious. And the student was admitted to Harvard early.
Thank you so much, Mary, for the very insightful presentation. So here are the programs that we offer now at Ingenious Prep. Because we are running out of time, I recommend you to take a screenshot of the service we have here. And if you want to have a evaluation with one of our admission experts, feel free to fill out the poll that I'm gonna launch right now. If you're interested in a free consultation, please select yes, and one of our admission experts is gonna help you with your particular questions on college admissions. And remember that we also have our TTT and IGP Houston office located at Katy Asiantown. I have put the contact information here. If you want to schedule an in-person visit, please scan the QR code or give a phone call on this number right here. Schedule an in-person visit with Lee or Michelle. If you have any question right now, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section. I don't see any questions here because I think Lee and Michelle have been answering the questions already. So I'm just gonna give another minute for the poll to end this poll. And in the meantime, I think there's another question in the Q&A section. It says, for 11th grader, who are the best two teachers to ask for recommendation, and when do you ask them?
Great. So we generally recommend if I have to kind of generalize this answer to help everyone, give context for everyone, but usually most schools request or require 2 teacher recommendations, and we strongly recommend that one comes from a STEM teacher, so science, technology, engineering, math, teacher, and then one comes from a humanities or social science teacher. So English is always a great option. You don't have to love English if that's not your thing, but English obviously offers a lot of demonstration of a variety of important skills, but also, English, philosophy, social studies, economics, business, history, all of the above. So usually it's one from each. And general recommendation is to ask in the spring of 11th grade. So before your school year ends, just so you can get on that teacher's radar. Some teachers like to plan ahead and, organize their recommendations before summer break. Some will even write them before summer break, or they'll write them during summer break. But even still, some teachers actually have like a cap, either personally or, the administration says, this teacher can only offer so many letters. So also, if you're aiming for kind of mid-spring, you can get ahead of, get ahead of, like, if there's a long queue of students who want to ask a very popular teacher.
Thank you so much, Mary. And I think we are there for our 1 hour session. I don't see other questions coming in. So thank you so much again, Mary, for giving us all the information and answering roughly all the questions. I hope that tonight is very helpful for everyone. I really enjoy and learn from Mary. I hope you guys too. So hope you all have a very great rest of your night. And thanks again for your time. And we'll see you next time. Bye.